So how do you react when you hear these people talking about a horrific crash, another Great Depression, Armageddon? That's why we hold physical precious metals. That's why we invest in mining stocks, right? To keep ourselves safe. But how realistic, how probable is it that we're actually going to have this big major crash, this Armageddon, this Great Depression? Let's take a look at some of the factors going on right now, both close to home and on a broad worldwide basis that could be pointing us in the direction of some very severe economic times in our future. We want to be safe, right? You want to protect yourself and protect your family. So we need to pull our heads out of the sand from time to time, look around, and most importantly, talk about the things we can do, actions we can take right now to help protect ourselves. We're going to talk about that specifically at the end of the video. Let's get started right now. Have you ever dealt with the customer service department at Amazon? I was on the phone with them Friday night, and I gotta say, I want to give them a shout out. I always have a great experience almost every single time I deal with Amazon customer service. Nonetheless, at the end of the call, this guy was really super nice, and he asked me, he said, "How's the weather where you are?" I said, "The weather's cold. I'm in St. Louis. It's freezing cold." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in Egypt." What does this have to do with gold, you might be asking yourself, or silver? I said, "Really?" I said, "How are things in Egypt?" He said, "Oh my God, the economy here is like really, really bad." Now, you may remember I did a video about Egypt and the fact that their central bank is taking steps to move their currency to be backed by gold. But nonetheless, during this brief conversation I had with this gentleman, I pulled away two key things. Number one, all around the world, people are dealing with super high inflation. It's killing the middle class. And when I mentioned this prospect of his local currency being backed by gold, I could tell that he was very, very much in favor of that occurring. We're going to broaden out the scope of this conversation, but I want to give you one more micro interaction that I had. One of the Ron's Basement subscribers, I love you all, but one by the name of Chris, sent me a picture from his local supermarket that showed a head of lettuce for $4.99. He said the week before it had been like $1.80. And a year ago, 2 years ago, we could buy heads of lettuce for $1. $5 for a head of lettuce. And this is what got me thinking. I was like, a head of lettuce, $5. A silver coin, an ounce of silver, according to the COMEX, is $20. Are 4 heads of lettuce really equal to 1 silver coin? I think the silver is way, way underpriced. But again, this also shows the runaway inflation that average everyday people are dealing with. And I emailed Chris back. I said, I think we need to get into the business of growing lettuce. Do you own a house? Do you live in a house? Do you live in an apartment? You live somewhere. Let's talk about affordability of housing. Big headline this week. I'll read this to you. Housing affordability worsens as home ownership out of reach for anyone making under $100,000 per year. Housing is becoming prohibitively expensive for the average person. Sure, there's a lot of people now who make over $100K a year. No doubt about it. But there's a lot of more people who make less than $100K per year. And for them, they can't afford to buy a house. Things are starting to get so difficult in the U.S. economy and the world economy. I know it's not just the U.S., and I know a lot of you are joining me from all over the world. It may be even worse where you are for the average person to just provide for their basic needs, right? Food, housing, transportation, health care. Eventually, guys, this could result or could contribute to a horrific crash as people aren't able to live and pay their bills. And do you know anybody who's part of Generation Z? Those are the youngsters, right? Like the kids in their low 20s, not the millennials. They're the ones now that are younger than the millennials. Here's a headline for them when it comes to housing. Inflation and economic woes lead 54% not 53, 54% of Gen Z Americans to live with their parents. And I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of nieces and nephews that are part of that Gen Z. And I started thinking about it last night. It's like, you know what? None of them do own a house. They're all, 2, 3, 4 years out of college, and none of them have purchased a condo, a house, anything. A lot of them are all still living with their parents or living in affordable apartments, if you can find those anymore. Are you starting to think this is turning into Ron's real estate show? I don't know how this happened, but I do have one more key sign we need to talk about regarding real estate. U.S. home builder confidence collapses in October. Future sales hope hits decade lows. And I read into the article that basically real estate sales are now as bad as the worst part when the health crisis hit a few years ago. Housing is falling apart, and at the same time, it's completely unaffordable. None of this makes any sense. And to me, these factors could all contribute to a major market collapse, economic collapse. It is not out of the realm of possibilities. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And when you're done leaving your keen comment, join me in saying hello to Rusty Mo Silver, a subscriber to Ron's Basement channel. The bear wanted to say hello to him. If you would like the bear to say hello to you or someone special in your life, send me an email. My email address is at the top of the description of every video. If you get any joy or value out of my content, please consider subscribing right here. Now let's get back to the meat of the matter. What do you say we pack our suitcases, go on a little trip? Let's go to Germany, one of the biggest developed economies in the world. Those Germans are smart people. I'm sure everything's great in Germany. Well, listen to this headline. Germany preparing for emergency cash deliveries, bank runs, and aggressive discontent ahead of winter power cuts. Guys, things are no better in Europe. They're dealing with a severe economic crisis and energy crisis. Throughout the world, all of our economies are interconnected and things are not looking good. Do you like shopping at Target? I never really got the whole Target thing. I was never a big fan of Walmart either, but I'm becoming a little more warmed up to Walmart in the last few years. Nonetheless, Target's kind of this classy version of Walmart, is what I always thought. They put out their numbers last week and they were horrific. They shocked Wall Street. And the CEO had negative things to say regarding how the economy is quickly falling apart. Their sales at the end of the third quarter kind of took a little bit of a nosedive. Now, it doesn't really make sense because then I think earlier around the same time in the week, Walmart came out and put their numbers out, which were good, until you dive in a little deeper. And what you learn is that the CEO of Walmart, you know what he said? He said our numbers were good because we had more affluent, more people with more money coming and buying their groceries at Walmart. So those people that wasn't really growth in the economy. Those were people who had maybe been going to Whole Foods or some other fancy grocery store. To each their own. I never got that one. But those people are switching from the expensive grocery stores to now buying their groceries at Walmart. It's just looking dicey everywhere you go. And the other key thing to remember on these retail numbers, those are nominal. That just means those are just the number. They don't factor in inflation, right? For instance, let me give you this quick example. Let's say that today everything would cost twice as much as it did 1 year ago. If Walmart said our sales this year were the exact same as last year, well, that would be great, but everything cost twice as much, so there would only be half as much volume. The volume of transactions going on in the economy in the United States, in the whole world, is shrinking. On just a pure dollar level, it might remain the same, but those are vastly inflated dollars. Let that sink in. That makes sense why FedEx is grounding a bunch of their freight airplanes, furloughing a bunch of their over-the-road truck drivers, and Maersk, the big international shipping company that ships those big shipping container ships all around the world, they are canceling sailings because the volume that's going on is closing down, decreasing. That will lead to less employment. Guys, this could all easily point towards a really, really drastic recession, economic hardship. Just a few more things to mention, and then we're going to talk about how we can prepare, some basic steps we can take. You got to look at the big picture going on in the world right now, too. Geopolitically, the world is separating. We aren't being fed that information on a regular basis here in the West, but if you read world news and if you take a broader view of things, the world is separating, whether you want to say between the East and the West, or the West and the BRICS, however you want to say it. The world is becoming more nationalistic, more bifurcated, and it's not a good thing for world economies. Now, the final thing we need to touch on is debt. There's just too much debt in the world. Estimates as high as $300 trillion. It's a debt bubble in the entire world, primarily driven by the United States of America. Debt always needs to be paid off. When you loan somebody money, right? If I say, hey, could I borrow $1,000 from you? You expect for that money to be paid back. Everybody who's owed those $300 trillion thinks they're going to get paid back. And mathematically, it's becoming darn near impossible that that could ever occur. So the fundamental idea that we could have a major economic collapse, it is real. We don't know for sure if it's going to happen. Maybe there's some magic behind the curtain that the world central banks can pull off. Let me know what you think on that matter, and I want to hear what you think about things we can do to prepare. We can get out of debt, okay? Pay off your debts to the extent that you can. Try to live debt-free. You can take care of your health. That's your primary need in life, right? If you aren't healthy, you don't have anything. So do your best to take care of your health. Develop your skills, right? Skills are very important. They allow you to, under any circumstance, offer value to your fellow humans. And finally, develop friendships, develop relationships with friends, with family, with neighbors. Together, we can do a lot more than on our own. And speaking of friends, I consider you a friend. I appreciate your time with me right now. It's just me and you here in Ron's basement. Thank you. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.